He was born in a small, freezing apartment on the outskirts of a Canadian city where winter felt longer than hope itself. The heater barely worked. The fridge was often empty. And at just 8 years old, he already understood something most adults spend a lifetime learning. Life was not going to be fair to him. While other kids talked about vacations and new toys, he counted coins on the kitchen table with his mother, trying to figure out which bill could wait another week. Poverty was not just around him, it was inside his daily routine, stitched into every decision. But what no one saw was the fire quietly forming behind his young eyes, a silent promise. One day this would not be his story anymore, and that promise would change everything. His father was gone before he could even remember his voice. No bedtime advice, no strong hand to guide him, just a hard-working mother juggling 2 jobs and exhaustion she tried to hide with a tired smile. He watched her leave before sunrise and return after dark, boots covered in snow, hands cracked from the cold. He noticed things children are not supposed to notice: overdue notices, silent tears in the bathroom, the weight of survival. And in that quiet observation, something began to grow inside him: responsibility. He stopped asking for things. He stopped complaining. Instead, he started thinking, there has to be a way out. And soon that thought would turn into action. School was not an escape. It was a reminder. Torn sneakers, second-hand backpack, lunch that looked smaller than everyone else's. Kids could be cruel without realizing it, and he felt the quiet judgment in their laughter. But instead of breaking him, it sharpened him. Every insult became fuel. Every moment of embarrassment became discipline. While others wasted time, he paid attention. He studied how things worked, why some families had more, why some businesses thrived. He began reading anything he could find about money, success, and ownership, even when he barely understood the words. He did not want sympathy. He wanted strategy. And one day that strategy would separate him from everyone who doubted him. By the age of 12, he started working small jobs, shoveling snow, delivering newspapers, carrying groceries for neighbors. Canadian winters were brutal, but he welcomed the cold. The cold meant opportunity. While others stayed inside, he knocked on doors offering to clear driveways before sunrise. His hands would go numb, his boots would soak through. But every dollar he earned felt different. It was proof. Proof that effort creates movement, proof that he was not powerless. And slowly, coin by coin, he began building more than savings. He was building belief. But the real test was still coming, and it would demand more than snow shovels and newspapers. At 16, reality hit harder. His mother's health started declining from years of overwork. Hospital visits replaced school events, bills stacked higher than ever. Fear entered their home like an uninvited guest. For the first time, he understood that survival was not enough. He needed leverage. He began researching businesses online at the local library. Landscaping, cleaning services, small service companies with low startup costs. He noticed something powerful. The owners were not always smarter. They were just braver. That realization shifted his mindset completely. Maybe success was not about talent. Maybe it was about courage, and he was about to test that theory in the real world. At 17, while most of his classmates were thinking about parties and weekend plans, he registered his first small service business. It was nothing glamorous, just basic lawn care and snow removal under a simple name he printed on cheap flyers. He walked door to door in neighborhoods that once made him feel small, now offering value instead of apology. Some doors closed, some people laughed, but a few said yes, and that was enough. He borrowed his uncle's old equipment, woke up before sunrise, and worked after school until his body ached. Every driveway cleared, every lawn trimmed, felt like a step away from that freezing apartment. The income was small, but the lesson was massive. Ownership felt different than working for someone else. For the first time, he was not just surviving, he was building. And he had no idea how fast things were about to change. The first winter as a business owner tested him harder than poverty ever did. A major snowstorm hit, and his phone would not stop ringing. At first, it felt like opportunity. Then it felt like pressure. He had more clients than he could handle and equipment that could barely survive the workload. One machine broke down in the middle of the storm. His hands were freezing. His boots were soaked. For a moment, standing alone in the dark under heavy snowfall, doubt whispered that maybe he was not ready for this. But then he remembered his mother's tired eyes. Quitting was never an option. He found a way, borrowed tools, worked through the night, delivered on every promise. That storm did not just grow his income, it grew his resilience. And resilience would soon become his greatest asset. By 18, his small operation was no longer just a side hustle. It was consistent. Clients referred him to neighbors. Trust replaced skepticism. He reinvested every dollar instead of spending it. While friends bought new phones and designer clothes, he bought better equipment and saved for a used truck. Discipline became his competitive advantage. He tracked expenses, studied marketing videos online, and learned basic accounting from free resources. He made mistakes, underpriced jobs, miscalculated fuel costs, trusted the wrong supplier. But instead of blaming circumstances, he adjusted strategy. That mindset separated him from others his age. He was not chasing fast money. He was building long-term stability. And soon, a bigger opportunity would appear, one that required him to think far beyond lawns and driveways. At 21, he made a decision that scared him more than poverty ever had. He expanded. He officially registered his company, hired 2 employees, and signed a small commercial contract for property maintenance. Payroll, insurance, taxes, responsibility multiplied overnight. For the first time, others depended on him for income, just like his mother once carried that weight alone. The pressure was intense. There were nights he stared at the ceiling, calculating numbers in his head, wondering if one mistake could destroy everything he had built. But pressure did not break him. It sharpened him again. He improved systems, created schedules, invested in branding, and focused on reputation. Slowly, the business stopped looking like a hustle and started looking like a company. And this was only the beginning of something much larger. By 25, the freezing apartment was no longer his reality. He had moved his mother into a warm, comfortable home in a better neighborhood. The first night she walked into that house, she cried, not because of luxury, but because of relief. Years of sacrifice had transformed into security. Standing in the doorway watching her, he realized something powerful. Success was never about money. It was about freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from unpaid bills. Freedom from watching someone you love suffer silently. But even in that moment of victory, he did not slow down. Because he understood something most people do not. Comfort can weaken hunger. And he refused to go backwards. Success did not make life easier. It made the challenges bigger. As his company grew, competition grew with it. Larger firms with better equipment and deeper pockets began targeting the same contracts. For the first time, he felt small again, like that boy in worn sneakers sitting at the back of the classroom. Some competitors tried to undercut his prices. Others questioned his experience because of his age. Doubt returned, louder than before. But instead of reacting emotionally, he responded strategically. He improved customer service, guaranteed response times, invested in better training for his team, and focused on building relationships instead of just chasing contracts. He realized something critical. People do business with those they trust. And trust could not be bought. It had to be earned daily. What he did next would redefine his entire future. He made a bold decision. He specialized. Instead of trying to compete in every area, he narrowed his services to high-demand commercial property maintenance contracts. It was risky. If it failed, the company could collapse. But he understood that clarity creates power. He studied market gaps, analyzed seasonal trends, and built a professional brand identity that positioned his company as reliable and elite. Slowly, property managers began choosing him not because he was cheaper, but because he was dependable. Dependability became his brand. That shift increased revenue, stabilized cash flow, and allowed him to plan long-term instead of surviving month to month. For the first time, he could see a scalable future. But growth at this level would demand stronger leadership than ever before. As the team expanded, leadership became his greatest challenge. Managing tasks was easy. Managing people was not. Employees had families, personal struggles, ambitions of their own. Mistakes happened, conflicts surfaced. There were moments he questioned whether he was ready to lead at this level. But instead of controlling through fear, he chose growth through mentorship. He invested in training, listened more than he spoke, and created a culture built on accountability and respect. He remembered how invisible he once felt as a child, and he refused to make anyone on his team feel that way. Slowly, morale strengthened, productivity improved, loyalty increased. The company was no longer just his escape from poverty, it became an opportunity for others. And that realization shifted everything once again. At 32, he faced the biggest setback of his career. A major contract unexpectedly ended due to corporate restructuring. Overnight, a large portion of revenue disappeared. Payroll still needed to be paid. Equipment loans remained. The fear he thought he had outgrown returned sharply. For several nights he barely slept, running numbers repeatedly, calculating survival timelines. This was the moment that separates dreamers from builders. Instead of panicking publicly, he communicated transparently with his team, reduced unnecessary expenses, and aggressively pursued new contracts. He leaned on discipline, not emotion. Within months, new opportunities replaced what was lost, and this time he diversified his client base to reduce risk. That crisis did not weaken him, it matured him, and the next phase would prove how far he had truly come. By 35, the boy who once counted coins at a kitchen table now owned a respected commercial maintenance company operating across multiple districts. He had managers overseeing operations, branded trucks on the road, and contracts that once felt impossible to obtain. Yet when he looked in the mirror, he still saw the child who promised himself change. Success had not erased his past, it had honored it. He continued reinvesting, mentoring young entrepreneurs, and speaking at local community events about discipline and ownership. Not because he needed recognition, but because he understood something powerful. Poverty is not permanent unless you surrender to it, and his journey was proof. But the most important lesson of all was still waiting to be revealed. At 37, he was invited back to his old elementary school to speak to students about entrepreneurship. Walking through those familiar hallways felt surreal. The lockers looked smaller, the classrooms felt quieter, but the memories were loud. He stood in front of children who reminded him of himself, some confident, some distracted, some silently carrying struggles no one else could see. He did not talk about money. He did not talk about luxury. He talked about discipline, about waking up early when no one is watching, about doing work that no one applauds, about believing in a future that does not yet exist. As he looked into their eyes, he realized something powerful. Success is not measured by what you escape, but by what you return to build. And what he said next left the entire room silent. He told them the truth most motivational speeches avoid. There were nights he wanted to quit, days he felt behind, moments when comparing himself to others almost stole his confidence. Social media showed overnight success stories. Real life showed slow progress. The gap between effort and reward tested his patience repeatedly. But he learned that consistency beats intensity. Small daily actions, repeated for years, compound into something powerful. He explained that poverty teaches you endurance, and endurance, when directed correctly, becomes an advantage. The room was silent because they were not hearing fantasy, they were hearing reality. And reality, when combined with belief, becomes unstoppable. But the most emotional part of his journey was not business growth. It was something far more personal. After the event, he drove to visit his mother. She was healthier now, smiling more, living without financial fear for the first time in decades. They sat together at the kitchen table, a larger, warmer version of the one where they once counted coins. She held his hand and said something simple: "You broke the cycle." In that moment, every freezing morning, every rejection, every sleepless night felt worth it. He realized his success was not about cars, contracts, or recognition. It was about rewriting a family story. It was about ensuring the next generation would start from strength instead of struggle. That understanding gave his journey a deeper meaning, and it left one final lesson that everyone watching needed to hear. He learned that being born broke is not a life sentence. It is a starting point. Circumstances can limit your comfort, but they cannot limit your vision unless you allow them to. Canada gave him opportunity, but opportunity required action. Hard work alone was not enough. He needed strategy, discipline, patience, the willingness to improve constantly, and most importantly, belief before proof. Many people wait for confidence before they start. He started before he felt confident. That difference changed everything. If there is one thing his story proves, it is this: you do not need a perfect beginning. You need relentless commitment. And if an 8-year-old boy in a freezing apartment could build something meaningful, what is stopping you? Today, his company continues to grow. But growth is no longer just financial, it is impact. He funds local youth programs, mentors young entrepreneurs, creates jobs for families who once felt invisible like he did. The boy who once felt small now creates space for others to rise. And if you are watching this right now, feeling behind, feeling underestimated, feeling like your situation defines you, remember this story. You are not your current environment. You are your daily decisions. Start small, stay disciplined, keep building. One day you will look back at your hardest years and realize they were training you for leadership. This is not just his story. It can be yours too, but only if you decide that your beginning will not control your ending.